My name is Ethan Walker, I'm 34 years old. And at exactly 20:17 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day, every phone at my grandmother's farmhouse buzzed at the same time. 43 relatives, 1 email, 1 attachment, 1 number. Vor 347 zalozen. The subject line ready. Invoice costo for ICNG foelurs. Every pair of eyes at that table turned toward me. My mother stood beside the dining room fireplace holding a glass of wine, like she'd been rehearsing this moment for months. She smiled. "Go ahead, Ethan," she said. "Open it." I didn't. Not immediately. Because I already knew whatever was inside wasn't meant for me. It was meant for an audience. She wasn't asking for money. She was asking for permission to erase the truth. The truth she'd buried almost 30 years earlier. She thought I would argue, cry, beg, apologize. Instead, I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out my phone, opened one old photograph, and with a single tap, I destroyed the story she'd spent 29 years telling everyone. By sunrise the next morning, 42 members of our family had blocked my mother. The only person who didn't was my grandfather. He did something much worse. But before I tell you what happened, if stories like this keep you watching until the very end, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read as many comments as I can, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, let me take you back to where all of this really began. Thanksgiving had always belonged to Grandpa Walter. Every year. Same farmhouse. Same cracked wooden porch. Same oak table big enough for everyone. The house sat outside Lexington, Kentucky, surrounded by fields that turned gold every November. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just home. When I was a kid, that house was the safest place I'd ever known. Mostly because my father was there. My father, Michael Walker. If you asked anyone in town about him, they'd tell you 3 things. He never lied. He worked too hard. And he loved his son more than anything. Those 3 facts would eventually destroy my mother's entire story. But nobody knew that yet. Including me. By the time I pulled into Grandpa Walter's driveway, that Thanksgiving afternoon, my fiancée Emma was asleep in the passenger seat. She'd worked an overnight shift at the hospital. I let her sleep another few minutes before gently touching her shoulder. "We're here." She smiled. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be." She squeezed my hand. "You don't have to prove anything to your family." I know. But deep down, I also knew this Thanksgiving felt different. For weeks my mother had been calling everyone. Checking in. Asking who was coming. Making sure nobody missed dinner. At first it sounded sweet. Now, I realized she was making sure she had a full audience. Inside the house everything looked exactly the same. The smell of roasted turkey. Fresh cornbread, sweet potatoes. Grandpa's old radio quietly playing classic country music. My Aunt Susan rushed over first. "Ethan!" She hugged me tightly. Then Emma, "You're both too skinny." Emma laughed. "I work in an emergency room." Susan smiled. "Then you need 2 plates." For a few minutes, everything felt normal. Kids running through the hallway. Football on television. Grandpa arguing with Uncle Ray about the Cowboys. The kind of family chaos people actually miss. Then, she walked in. Denise Walker, my mother, perfect makeup, perfect hair, designer coat, expensive perfume. Everything about her looked successful. Except, her eyes. There was something restless behind them. Like someone constantly calculating. Always measuring. Always planning. She hugged everyone. Except me. Instead she smiled politely. "Ethan, Mom, I heard business is doing okay. It keeps us busy." She nodded slowly. "Furniture isn't exactly medicine or law." Emma looked at me. I just smiled. "I enjoy it." She laughed quietly. "I'm sure you do." That was my mother. Every compliment had a knife hidden inside it. "I own a custom furniture company, Walker Woodworks. Started it 12 years ago with 1 rented warehouse and a used pickup truck. Today, we employ 23 craftsmen, build custom furniture across 6 states, hotels, restaurants, historic homes. Last year, we crossed $3 million in revenue. I'm proud of what we've built. My mother has never once called it a real business. To her, I make tables. The same way she'd tell people someone plays guitar. As if it were a hobby. Not a career. Dinner began around 2:43 people. Turkey. Ham. 3 kinds of pie. Grandpa said grace. Everyone clapped. The noise filled the room. Then every phone buzzed. Exactly together. Buzz. 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 Even Grandpa looked confused. What in the world? My cousin Tyler pulled out his phone. So did everyone else. Someone laughed. Group email. My mother stood, smiling. I sent everyone something. She lifted her wine glass. I've been wanting to say this for years. Nobody spoke. Please open it. I unlocked my phone. Subject ENVOIC attachment PDF. I opened it. Across the top, bold black letters. Dinesa Welkiar statement of account customer Edihan Welkiar outstanding balance war 347 so's and below it, line after line. Pregnancy expenses, though 18,400 hospital delivery, 22,600 food and clothing, as are 61,000 private education, though 73,000 college fund, 58,000 lost career opportunities, the 71,000 emotional suffering, so 1,000 in total do ye do 347 alozin at the bottom one sentence. Pay this debt, or admit you've always been the greatest failure I ever raised. Silence. Complete silence. Even the kids stopped talking. My cousin slowly whispered, "Is this real?" Nobody answered. My mother looked directly at me. "I've sacrificed everything." She took another sip of wine. "And today, I'd like some acknowledgement." Nobody moved. I kept staring at one section. Food, clothing, school, birth through age 10, birth through age 10. My stomach tightened. Because something about those dates wasn't just wrong. They were impossible. I looked back down. Age 0 through 10. She billed me for 10 years. 10 years. She wasn't even there. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because memories have a strange way of arriving all at once. I remembered birthday cakes, fishing trips, school plays, learning to ride a bike, every single memory. My father was there. My mother wasn't. How had I never noticed that before? Grandpa Walter suddenly cleared his throat. "Denise." She smiled confidently. "Yes. What exactly is this? My son owes me?" The room stayed quiet. "I sacrificed my future raising him." Uncle Ray frowned. "I thought Michael raised Ethan." She laughed. "Oh Ray, Michael helped. My father had packed my lunches, washed my clothes, read bedtime stories, taught me how to shave, sat beside my hospital bed when I broke my arm. He wasn't helping, he was parenting." Emma slowly reached under the table and squeezed my hand. "You okay?" "I think so." Truthfully, I wasn't. Not because of the invoice. Because something felt rehearsed. Too polished. Too prepared. This wasn't anger. It was a presentation. She'd spent weeks building it. Then my mother looked directly at me. Well, I met her eyes. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth." "What truth?" "That you owe everything you've become to me." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I asked one question. "Mom, when I was 6, what elementary school did I attend?" She blinked. "What?" "My first grade teacher." "What was her name?" Silence. She smiled awkwardly. "That was a long time ago." "I remember." "You should too." Several relatives exchanged looks. Grandpa slowly lowered his fork. My Aunt Susan frowned. Mom folded her arms. "You're trying to change the subject." "No. I'm asking about the years you just charged me for." She stared at me. "I raised you." "Then answer." "What school?" She hesitated. "Lincoln." I shook my head. "There isn't a Lincoln Elementary within 60 miles. The room became noticeably quieter. Uncle Ray leaned back. "I thought Ethan went to Oak Creek." "I did," I answered. "My dad enrolled me." My mother interrupted. "We both did." I looked at her. "What color was my first backpack?" Silence. "What, you bought it? So tell me?" Another pause. "Blue." I smiled sadly. "It was red. Had dinosaurs. Dad picked it because I was obsessed with Jurassic Park." Emma looked at me. She knew. She could hear the difference. I wasn't angry anymore. I was remembering. For years, I'd accepted my mother's version of our family. She was difficult, critical, sometimes cruel. But I'd never questioned whether she'd actually raised me. Not until she handed me a bill. Funny how lies collapse under numbers, especially when the numbers don't match the memories. Then Grandpa spoke, quietly. "Denise, you left." The room froze. She looked at him. "What?" "You left. For years." Her smile disappeared. "I came back." "That's not what I said." "You left." Nobody breathed. Grandpa rarely challenged anyone, especially his own daughter. But something had shifted. My mother quickly recovered. I was finding my footing. I was building a future. I always intended to come back. Grandpa nodded slowly. "I know. But while you were finding yourself, Michael was finding daycare. Michael was finding babysitters. Michael was working double shifts. Michael was raising that little boy." Silence. Real silence. I looked across the table at the old family photographs hanging on the wall. Christmas, birthdays, camping trips. Every picture, Dad, me, Grandpa, Grandma, uncles, aunts. Almost none included my mother. How had none of us ever questioned that? Then something clicked inside my head. A memory. Not of a conversation. A photograph. One I'd scanned years earlier, while cleaning Dad's garage after he passed away. I hadn't looked at it in almost 5 years. But I remembered every detail. Dad holding me on his shoulders. Behind us, a courthouse clock. And taped to the window of a nearby diner, a newspaper announcing the county fair. The date was visible. That date mattered. Because according to my mother's invoice, she'd been raising me that entire year. Except, she wasn't even living in Kentucky then. She was in Nevada. Everyone in the family knew she'd moved there. She just hoped nobody remembered when. Slowly, very slowly, I reached into my pocket, unlocked my phone, opened an old folder. Dad, hundreds of scanned photos appeared. Fishing, birthdays, camping, Christmas morning. Then, there it was. I stared at the screen. My heart started pounding. I zoomed in. The date was still there, perfectly clear. I looked up at my mother. She smiled. "You finally ready to apologize?" I smiled back. "No, I'm ready to answer." I tapped the image. Selected the family email thread. Attached one photograph. My thumb hovered over the send button. I looked around the table one last time. Then I pressed send. Every phone in the room buzzed again. Every phone in the dining room buzzed. No one moved. Not even the kids. 43 people stared down at their screens. Then, one by one, their heads lifted. Not toward me. Toward my mother, Denise. She was still standing near the fireplace with her wine glass in one hand, wearing the same confident smile she'd been wearing all afternoon, for exactly 3 seconds. Then she looked down at her own phone. Her smile disappeared. The photograph filled every screen. My father stood in front of the old Lexington courthouse, laughing as he held 5-year-old me on his shoulders. Behind us hung a large banner stretched across Main Street. LIXEDYFR, September 1997. In the corner of the photo sat a newspaper stand displaying the date, September 12, 1997. I had circled it in red before sending it. Below the picture I'd written only one sentence. According to Mom's invoice, she was raising me here. The problem is, she was living in Reno, Nevada. Silence swallowed the room. Uncle Ray leaned closer to his phone. September 97. He looked at Dennis. "Weren't you working at Silver Crest Casino then?" Denise didn't answer. She simply stared at the screen. Aunt Susan slowly lowered her fork. "I remember that." Grandpa Walter nodded once. "So do I." The room changed. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like ice beginning to crack beneath someone's feet. Denise cleared her throat. "One picture proves nothing." Nobody answered. She forced a laugh. "Pictures don't tell the whole story." I finally stood. "They don't. They only tell one moment." I looked around the table. "But memories tell the rest." I walked toward the old bookshelf in Grandpa's dining room. There were dozens of framed photographs. Christmas mornings, fishing trips, school graduations, county fairs, birthday parties. I picked up the first frame. Dad teaching me to ride a bike. Second frame. Dad at my second grade science fair. A third. Dad holding my baseball trophy. A fourth. My 8th birthday. I placed them carefully across the table. Can anyone find my mother? Everyone looked. Nobody spoke, because she wasn't in any of them. Denise folded her arms. Michael kept me away. A grandpa looked at her. No. His voice remained calm. You stayed away. She snapped toward him. You don't know everything. I know enough. No. You don't? I know who slept on that couch after double shifts because he couldn't afford a babysitter. She looked away. I know who packed Ethan's lunches. A still nothing. I know who sat in this kitchen every Sunday night, sewing patches on that little Cub Scout uniform. Her jaw tightened. And it wasn't you. Emma squeezed my hand beneath the table. She whispered, You're doing fine. I wasn't sure. My hands were shaking. Not from anger. From remembering. I'd spent years believing my mother simply wasn't affectionate. Now, I was beginning to realize she'd been absent. Those weren't the same thing. Cousin Tyler finally broke the silence. Aunt Denise. If you weren't in Kentucky, who signed Ethan's school papers? Denise answered immediately. I did. Grandpa slowly stood. Knew. He disappeared into the hallway. Everyone watched him leave. 2 minutes later he returned carrying a faded green file box. I'd seen it before. Dad called it his important papers. Grandpa set it on the dining table. The old latch clicked open. Inside were dozens of neatly labeled folders. Birth certificate, medical records, school records, taxes, insurance, everything. Grandpa looked at me. I think your father wanted you to have these someday. I opened the first folder. Oak Creek Elementary. Enrollment forms. Emergency contacts. Parent authorization. Every line listed one name. Michael Walker. Mother's name. Blank. Next folder. Pediatric records. Guardian Michael Walker. Mother. Not listed. Next folder. Little League registration. Parent signature. Michael Walker. I kept turning pages. Every single document told the same story. Not because someone wanted revenge. Because paperwork doesn't care about feelings. Paperwork remembers. Aunt Susan quietly wiped her eyes. Oh my God. Tyler leaned over. There's years of these. Grandpa nodded. Michael kept everything. Denise suddenly slammed her hand against the table. He manipulated the records. No one answered. She pointed toward me. He turned my own son against me. I shook my head. Dade never spoke badly about you. That part hurt the most. He hadn't. Not once. Growing up, he'd always said, Your mother has her own battles. Never insults. Never blame. Never poison. Just hope. Hope that one day she'd come back. Emma looked at Denise. Can I ask you something? Denise folded her arms. What? When was Ethan's first broken bone? Silence. What? You raised him? You should know. Denise stared. I? Emma looked at me. You were 9. I nodded. Fell out of Dad's treehouse. A grandpa smiled sadly. Michael carried you almost a mile because the truck wouldn't start. Everyone remembered, except Denise. Then Uncle Ray asked the question no one else wanted to ask. So why now? Denise looked confused. What? Why send this invoice now? She shrugged. I deserve respect. Nung. Ray shook his head. Something happened. Oh, she looked away. Grandpa noticed. So did I. Something in her face had changed. Fear. Real fear. Not embarrassment. Panic. Emma quietly reached into her purse. There might be something you should all see. I looked at her. What is it? She pulled out her tablet. I wasn't going to mention this. But now I think I should. She opened an email. 3 weeks old. Sender Denise Walker. Subject. Regarding Ethan Walker, Emma looked around the room. She sent this to me before Thanksgiving. She handed me the tablet. I read aloud. Emma. Before you marry Ethan, you deserve to know he's financially irresponsible. He refuses to support his own family, and has always avoided his obligations. I hope you'll convince him to do the right thing before it's too late. The room erupted. What? When did she send that? Emma answered quietly. 3 weeks ago. I never replied. I looked at my mother. You were trying to turn my fiancé against me. She couldn't meet my eyes. Grandpa Walter sighed. Dennis! Enough! She looked exhausted now, like someone who'd spent years holding a heavy lie together. Then, her phone rang. She glanced down. The color drained from her face. She declined the call immediately. 30 seconds later, it rang again, same number. Again. Again. Tyler leaned forward. Who's calling? She slipped the phone into her purse. No one? Grandpa's eyes narrowed. Answer it. No. Answer it. I said no. The phone rang again. Finally, she answered. We're in the middle of dinner. A man's voice echoed loudly enough that everyone heard. Mrs. Walker, this is your final notice. If payment isn't received by Monday, foreclosure proceedings will begin. No one moved. The call ended. The room became absolutely still. Uncle Ray whispered, foreclosure. Grandpa closed his eyes. So that's what this is. Sir Denise's shoulders collapsed. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. The confident woman who'd arrived 2 hours earlier was gone. In her place stood someone desperate. She finally whispered, I was trying to save my house. Nobody interrupted. I thought. She swallowed hard. I thought Ethan could help. I looked at her. You never asked. She started crying. I knew you'd say no. So instead, you sent me a bill. She nodded once. I thought. If everyone believed you owed me, you'd feel trapped. No one defended her, not because she was evil. Because she'd admitted the truth herself. The invoice had never been about motherhood. It had been about money. I walked to the fireplace. Dad's old photograph still stood there. I picked it up. Turned toward everyone. My father worked 2 jobs. He missed sleep. He missed vacations. He sold his motorcycle to buy me braces. I smiled at the picture, and somehow, he never once sent me a bill. Tears rolled down Aunt Susan's face. Grandpa quietly removed his glasses. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the printed invoice Denise had handed me. Folded it once. Then again. Then I tore it in half. The sound echoed through the silent dining room. Then again. And again. Tiny pieces drifted into the fireplace. I watched them disappear. You don't get paid. I looked directly at my mother. For the years you chose to miss. No one applauded. No dramatic speeches followed. Only silence. Sometimes silence says everything words cannot. After several minutes, Grandpa Walter walked over to Denise. He didn't yell. He simply handed her a small wooden box. She frowned. What is this? Michael left it here before he died. You never wanted it. She slowly opened it. Inside lay dozens of photographs. Every birthday she'd missed. Every Christmas morning. Every baseball game. Every Father's Day. Michael had written a single sentence on the inside lid. If Denise ever wants to know the son she left behind, start here. Denise broke down. Not because she lost the argument, because she realized what she'd actually lost. Years, moments, a lifetime she could never buy back. 3 months later, Emma and I were married. Small ceremony. Only family who wanted to celebrate came. Grandpa Walter stood beside me. During the reception, I announced something. Walker Woodworks would be opening a free apprenticeship program for young adults who couldn't afford college. We named it after my father. The Michael Walker Craftsmanship Scholarship. The first plaque hung in our workshop. Underneath it, the same photograph I'd sent on Thanksgiving. Dad smiling, me on his shoulders. The date that changed everything. Sometimes customers ask about it. I tell them, that's the man who raised me. No more, no less. As for my mother, she eventually wrote me a letter, not asking for money, not asking for forgiveness, just 6 words. I finally stopped lying to myself. The healing wasn't instant. Trust wasn't magically restored. Some things never returned to what they were. But the truth finally had a place at our family's table. And that was enough for me. Because in the end, my mother sent me a $347,000 bill labeled, Cost of Raising a Failure. I answered with one photograph. It didn't just expose a lie. It reminded everyone, including me, that love isn't measured by money, sacrifices aren't recorded on invoices, and the people who truly raise us never ask to be repaid. If you enjoyed this story, Don't forget to like, subscribe to the Family Conspiracy, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.